Welcome everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into another every point in the series and for today's matchup I got Minato versus Sasuke. These are two fan favorites and also two of some of the most respectable fighters in the Naruto verse. For good reason, they're both incredibly versatile, hacks, and very intelligent. So I figured it'd be a cool topic for discussion and see who comes out on top in most versus battles. So the versions of Sasuke we're going to use in this video are pretty much the same as the Sasuke versus Might Guy video I did with Virtue a while ago. Hebi Sasuke with Orochimaru absorbed, so pretty much the same Sasuke that fought Itachi in mid Shippuden. Kage Summit Sasuke, as in the Sasuke that fought Danzo in his top shape, and EMS Sasuke late war arc. Reason for doing these versions of Sasuke is because when pitting him up against Minato, there aren't really too many versions that would coincide with Sasuke to make the fights too interesting. So the versions of Minato we're going to use are Jonin Minato, as in the Minato that fought against A and B in the Third Great Ninja War, Hokage Minato, as in the Minato that fought the Obito with the Nine Tails, and Edo Minato in the war arc with KCM2. But real quick before we get into that, if y'all haven't yet, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really helps me, puts the video out the algorithm, and it really just inspires me to keep making these videos for y'all. I really enjoy this every point in the series, little series I've been doing for a while. So if you really would, just like the video and subscribe and comment below what you guys think to help put it out in the algorithm more. It really supports me and I really cannot wait to keep bringing you more. So thank you all for watching, but with all out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it. Real quick before we also get started, at the end of the video I'll also do a little bonus round for y'all, so just to make it interesting I'll leave that for a teaser. But yeah, first round we have Jonin Minato versus Hebi Sasuke. So with Hebi Sasuke, he'll have his fire style and lightning style natures, Orochimaru absorbed, plus the 8-headed serpent if he needed, and curse mark, and of course Kirin. For Jonin Minato, I think his arsenal will be the usual with the exception of Sage Mode, since it's not really stated or even hinted when Minato could have learned Sage Mode, and given that the only time we ever see him use it is when we can assume after he became Hokage. So I think for the sake of simplicity and some fairness, we'll say that Jonin Minato doesn't know Sage Mode yet, but we can still give him the summoning jutsu. So the first thing that most people will go to when discussing this fight is that Minato's speed will be too much for Sasuke, which they're not wrong. Minato's speed with FTG is definitely going to be a hassle for Sasuke to deal with. However, I think there's something to note though. Now, what I'm about to bring up might technically not apply here since it's in reference to Kage Summit Sasuke, but at the same time, it might also technically still apply here as it references a feat shown by Sasuke using his base Sharingan. So, when fighting against the Raikage, Sasuke is able to react and dodge the Raikage's elbow bolt at full speed with just his base Sharingan. I know that at full speed isn't the same as the Raikage's top speed, but still. Something interesting to think about, you could argue that A's base speed here is the same as his top speed when he fought Minato during the Third Great Ninja War. I know that might seem like a stretch, but when you consider how often the Raikage trains, and given the 16 plus years since he fought Minato, then it doesn't seem too unlikely that at the time of the Kage Summit, his base speed has increased enough to be relative to his top speed back then. I mean, if you need some convincing, the very first time we see the Raikage, he's just casually lifting weights in his office, sort of implying this guy trains on the regular. Now, this is important to note because when A fought Minato, he seemed pretty convinced that he'd be able to catch Minato at his top speed to whichever FTG marker Minato teleported to. The main reason he couldn't was because he didn't realize or even anticipate Minato would place an FTG mark on B. Now, that said, I'm not saying A would have definitely been able to get to Minato even if that hadn't happened, but I do think it's worth bringing up, as this might indicate that Sasuke with his base Sharingan might have the precog necessary in order to perceive Minato's movements even with FTG. The thing is though, is that even if you do subscribe to that, it might not make much of a difference, as even if Sasuke's Sharingan can follow Minato, his travel speed isn't quite on that level. As we even see, he wasn't even able to hit Dater at point blank range. Though you could argue, since Sasuke wasn't necessarily fighting with killer intent, that maybe he wasn't going at full speed. And when it comes to anything long range for Sasuke, I don't see much that's going to be fast enough to hit Minato from a distance in enough time before he can teleport. However, Sasuke does have a jutsu that would allow him to keep Minato from marking him with Flying Thunder, which would be his Chidori Stream. If Minato attempts to mark Sasuke, he could use Chidori Stream to keep Minato from doing so. That is, if Sasuke really isn't aware of how Minato uses Flying Thunder God in the first place, not unlike the Raikage. Sasuke might pick up on the fact that Minato teleports to an FTG kunai marker, but he may not pick up on the fact that Minato can mark people too. So for example, if they get into a brief taijutsu skirmish, sort of similar to how he and Sai did during the Tenchi Bridge arc where Sai was able to block one of Sasuke's attacks, then Minato could use that opportunity to place an FTG mark on Sasuke. Now if he does so, Sasuke, assuming his base Sharingan can perceive Minato's movements in time, can still use Chidori's stream to knock Minato back if he attempts to teleport and blitz him. Although if Minato has the reaction time necessary to dodge the Raikage at full speed, then I don't think Minato will have too much trouble avoiding Chidori's stream even if Minato attempts to blitz Sasuke and Sasuke uses it. I feel like at worst in that scenario, Minato might come away with a little damage, but not that much. Besides, Sasuke can't play that tactic forever, as I'm sure Sasuke doing that repeatedly would take more chakra than Minato repeatedly using FTG. Now to be frank, I don't really know if the fight gets too far, as with Minato having an advantage of speed, he might be able to end the fight before it gets to CM2. I know with Orochimaru Absorb, Sasuke can heal relatively quickly, but it's not as instant as say like Tsunade's 100 healings, or even how Obito healed himself from a scratch during his fight with Kakashi in the Kamui dimension. So if Minato is able to play the hit and run game and do enough lethal damage to Sasuke, it's likely he'll be able to end the fight before Sasuke has much chance to get to CM2. But let's just say for the conversation that it does. I mean, it'll provide Sasuke with a boost for sure, and him being able to fly definitely helps too. But if he wants to get the killing blow against someone like Minato, he's going to have to get in close. And again, Minato is going to just be way too fast for him here. Now, I'm not trying to sleep on Sasuke's speed or reaction time, as even in his Hebi days, he's shown some pretty interesting feats. One that comes to mind the first is him being able to stop Jugo and Suigetsu from attacking each other. Now, assuming they were attacking with full combat speed, this is actually pretty impressive, as we see Suigetsu block an attack on the Raikage during the summon arc. And as I said earlier, with his base Sharingan, Sasuke was able to react to the Raikage's elbow bolt at full speed. So I do think Sasuke can give Minato a little bit of trouble here, but Hebi Sasuke isn't particularly used to fighting people who use Minato's type of fighting style. And as we see in the Kage Summit, Sasuke was caught by the neck by Danzo, who was almost never shown or known to be a speedster. So with that, I'd say that the fight probably would go to a battle of attrition. CM2 might help in that regard, but I don't think Sasuke would opt to stay in it for too long, as the more he does, the greater the risk of him staying that way and or losing himself is, as noted by Sakan in part 1. As for Manda and the 8-headed serpent, they're definitely tough and could provide a lot of help to Sasuke. But Minato can summon Gamabunta and maybe even a couple of the more medium-sized toads to help, maybe Monpa as well if we give him that, which if we do, they can use Frog Song to help. When it comes to Sasuke using Genjutsu on Minato, it's definitely possible, but if Minato knows he's fighting an Uchiha, he'll likely know better than to look Sasuke directly in his eyes. With that, I know the whole Obito thing has been debated for a long time. If that was the case, why did Minato look Obito directly at his face when they fought? Which, I mean, Obito had a mask on. I mean, with that, we see that there are times when people look at Obito's mask and don't directly look into his eyes. Case in point, when he was acting like Toby in front of the Leaf team when he fought, the Itachi Pursuit team. Like, he fought the entire team and even got up close on a couple of them. And yet, it wasn't until Kakashi looked at him at the end of the fight that he saw that he had a Sharingan. So it's likely that even if you look directly at his mask, that you're not always looking at his eyes. Now, moving on to Kirin. Now, if you're a channel veteran, you'll know how much of a Kirin stan I am. But in this particular fight, I think it's less likely Sasuke will be able to hit Minato with it. Now, Kirin is handled a couple different ways. In the fight with Itachi, Sasuke had to create a thunderstorm in order to create and use Kirin. But in the Tenchi Bridge arc, it's implied that he's able to form a couple hand signs and just drop it on the spot without a thunderstorm. So for the sake of conversation, if we take Kirin at its best and say Sasuke can just drop it on the spot, it might add more chances for Sasuke to hit Minato. But in my personal opinion, if Itachi had enough time to put up the whole Susanoo and or Yadamir in order to block Kirin, I feel as though doing something as small and simple as teleporting will take even less time. Now, I'm not saying there's absolutely no chance Kirin can hit Minato, as 1/1000th of a second is crazy fast. I just think the chances are more in Minato's favor to dodge it here. So with this round, I'd probably give it to Minato mid-diff. Moving on to Hokage Minato versus Kage Summit Sasuke. So with this round, Sasuke obviously loses Orochimaru plus Curse Mark, but gains his MS along with Susanoo and Flame Control. He also loses Manda and the 8-headed serpent, but gains his new Hawk summon. Minato, on the other hand, doesn't lose anything, but gains Sage Mode. So with this one, it's a bit trickier than the last. To start off with, Sasuke has a better feat to use here when using his MS, which was being able to react enough time to put up his Enton on his Susanoo ribcage before an amped Raikage was able to hit him, meaning that his MS has a better chance of avoiding Minato's attacks with Enton ribcage or Chidori Stream, like I said earlier. However, Minato isn't A. He's not going to be as reckless, and he's not going to just hit Sasuke Susanoo with Amaterasu on it. If anything, he might just send a clone to do that for him. Speaking of the clones, this is something I didn't really touch up on in the previous round, but Minato can use clones too. While he definitely can't make as many clones as Naruto, he can still utilize them just as good, if not better. Now, when it comes to fighting clones, Sasuke doesn't really ever have too much trouble. That is, at least when he's fighting Naruto and Naruto uses them. But Sasuke isn't used to fighting clones that can be used in conjunction with Flying Thunder. Now, with his MS and the fact that the clones scale a little bit lower to the original, and again that Minato can't make as many, there's a decent chance Sasuke can deal with them here too. I think Amaterasu is a pretty safe bet that it won't land on Minato. I mean, if the Raikage can dodge it on just pure speed and instinct alone, then Minato should be able to do the same thing. Then there's Sasuke's Hawk, which definitely gives Sasuke an aerial advantage, but like I said with the Curse Mark section, if he wants to get the killing blow on someone like Minato, he's going to have to get in a little bit closer, as, I mean, if Amaterasu isn't fast enough to hit Minato, then nothing else in Sasuke's arsenal, aside from arguably Kirin, is going to work. Now, there is an opportunity for Sasuke to land Amaterasu. I know many people will say that Sasuke, like Itachi, can just use Amaterasu on the FTG marks that are around the battlefield, which they're definitely not wrong, but the problem is that Minato is the type of person who usually backpacks anywhere from 15 to 20 plus kunais at any given time. And so trying to use Amaterasu on all or even most of them is going to burn out Sasuke's eyes and drain a good bit of his chakra. And that's not even factoring if he's using a Susanoo at the same time, which if he felt like he had to use it against Danzo and the Raikage respectively, he'll do the same with Minato for sure. Maybe with Sasuke having better flame control here, he'd be able to spread the Amaterasu better, in order to get most of the markers off the field, but that still doesn't stop Minato from marking anything else around him and around the battlefield to his advantage. But there is a second possibility for Sasuke to counter FTG. If we go by the precog scaling earlier, then Sasuke has the visual perception needed in order to predict which kunai marker Minato will teleport to, similar to how the Raikage did during their fight, and then while doing so can just roast it with Amaterasu. The counter argument to that would be that if Minato has the reaction time on par with the Raikage who can dodge Amaterasu at point blank, then Minato might still have the reaction time necessary in order to teleport again before the flames spawn on him. Even more so if he's in Sage Mode already. But if Minato's clones are out in the field, plus Ma and Pa and any of the other summons, it's likely to cause too much distraction for Sasuke to accurately pinpoint and predict where Minato will teleport to. Having said that, I do think it's a possibility that Sasuke, on the other hand, will be able to hit Minato with Amaterasu using his precog, if he times it well enough. Speaking of the Susanoo, let's go ahead and discuss it. The Susanoo will definitely be a problem for Minato here. But the thing is if Sasuke doesn't initially start the fight in the Susanoo, and he and Minato get in a taijutsu skirmish, then it provides Minato with a better opportunity to place an FTG mark on Sasuke, which will render the Susanoo a moot point. If Sasuke does start the fight with the Susanoo, it'll be a bit tougher for Minato to land a decisive blow on Sasuke. But Minato can literally play the cat and mouse game and avoid most, if not all, of Sasuke's attacks, and just wait for him to burn out his eyes or his chakra. Something to also consider here is that the entire time Sasuke relies on his MS, there might be a couple moments in the fight where Sasuke has to stop for a few seconds because of the pain in his body as a result of using his MS without restraint, as noted by Obito in the Sasuke and Danzo fight. If Sasuke has to rely on his Susanoo and Amaterasu here, then it'll just be the exact same thing. And if he has a moment like he did against the Mizukage where he literally had to stop himself and he fell to the ground and literally thought to himself how bad the pain must have been for Itachi, then Minato might capitalize on that moment and just land a lethal strike. So with this fight, I'd say Minato takes this also like mid-diff, but depending on how Sasuke fights and his reliance on the MS abilities, then it might be easier for Minato to win here than it was the previous match. Moving on to Edo Minato versus EMS Sasuke. Okay, so I'm not gonna front with y'all. This one was the trickiest one of the video. Like, I'm gonna be real and saying it was pretty tough for me to come to a definitive conclusion on who I felt wins this one, because both of them are as strong as they've ever been up to this point. Starting with the speed and reaction time of both characters, as that might be one of the more deciding factors in this. Minato has FTG, duh, but now he also has KCM too. Right off the bat, I'm not entirely sure if KCM amps the speed of FTG or not. I don't think there's any definitive concrete evidence to say that it does, but there isn't anything that suggests that it doesn't either. So if we go on the side that it doesn't, well, that may not amp Minato's teleporting speed. It does amp his basic travel speed, which if it's anything how it was for Naruto, then it'll basically be like FTG anyway. Sasuke's speed, while it might not be as initially impressive, we do see in the later part of the Obito fight that he was fighting on par in terms of combat speed with KCM2 Sage Mode Naruto. Like, it's stated by Sasuke himself, he was getting better and better at perceiving Obito's movements, which is nothing to sleep on. When it comes to chakra, Minato will obviously have the edge in terms of Edo Tensei and KCM2, but I don't think Sasuke's chakra is something to be slept on either. Now, I've seen some pretty crazy takes on how much Sasuke's chakra reserves are, and saying it's on the level of like Hashirama, mainly due to the fact that Sasuke and Naruto are said to be pretty much equals in the war arc, and Hashirama stated that Naruto and KCM2 had almost as much chakra as he does, so by extension Sasuke should too, and that's just not the case. Besides, I'm pretty sure that was made evident when Sasuke thinks to himself, this is Naruto with like perfect control over this much chakra. That said, outside of the time he had the Nine Tails cloak, because it doesn't really count to his own chakra reserves, we don't really ever see Sasuke tire out from chakra exhaust. So his chakra pool is pretty extensive, it's just not on the level of Naruto or Hashirama. Attack power would probably go to Minato too. With KCM2 in Sage Mode, I think he has a bit of an edge over Sasuke, but like not all that much, because Sasuke's attack power is nothing to sleep on either. It's just kind of hard to compare these two in AP, because in both fights that EMS Sasuke participates in, not counting Revived Madara, he kind of gets somewhat carried by two people, Itachi and Naruto. While Naruto didn't 100% carry Sasuke, as Sasuke does put in just as much work, the problem is that most of Sasuke's feats were more or less overshadowed by Naruto's. Something that many people have speculated over the years is whether or not Minato can stack Sage Mode on top of KCM2, just like Naruto. And while we don't ever see it, I don't think it's too out of the realm of possibility. In fact, if Minato can master KCM2 in the time since he was brought back with Edo Tensei, and to the time it took to get to the battlefield, I see no reason to believe that Minato can't figure it out how to stack Sage Mode on top of it either. Besides, it's pretty much evident that the main reason Naruto couldn't do so himself was because Kurama wasn't having it. So assuming Minato's half of Kurama is going to be just as willing, then it should be reasonable, and if that's the case, then Minato's going to have an edge over Sasuke in terms of AP. Though Minato can't sustain Sage Mode for too long, unless combining it with KCM helps in that situation, I'm not really 100% sure. Now, with Sasuke being able to spam Amaterasu, it'll likely restrict FTG unless Minato carefully puts one on like a hidden rock or something. So it might be a case where Minato has only his base speed in KCM2 to rely on, which Minato can only use the KCM2 cloak for so long. It just depends on how much chakra Kurama is able to infuse and for how long he can put it out for. Once that wears off, it becomes much more trickier for Minato. When it comes to the KCM2 Kurama avatar, if Sasuke has the perfect Susanoo, which by the end of the Obito fight there's much more evidence to suggest that he does, like being able to use the majestic entire Susanoo around the entire Nine Tails, which only Madara was able to do with the perfect Susanoo, then Sasuke's going to have the edge over Minato here too.
Sasuke does also have Iota in place of Manda, which will definitely help. Iota is a G, so he's definitely going to help here, but Minato can just summon Gamamuta or Gamakichi, whichever one, as extra backup if he needs it. That's not really mentioning the fact that he might be able to just go ahead and deal with Iota with the KCM2 Kurama avatar. Speaking of Kurama, that's going to play on the Genjutsu side as well. That's going to play a factor because, I mean, even though Sasuke's Genjutsu is a lot better now and a lot stronger, being on par or maybe even above Itachi's Genjutsu by the time he has EMS, it's not going to make much of a difference if Kurama is able to break Minato out. I mean, Killer B was able to break out of Itachi's Genjutsu quick enough to A, lob all of his swords out of Samehada, and B, deflect all the shuriken that Itachi threw at him. So if Killer B can do that, I'm sure Minato could do something just as similar or better. Something that I want to bring up, and I'm not entirely sure where it's going to apply to, but it might apply to every single one of these rounds. But something that's not talked about enough is Lord Fukasaku's strength. That man, or frog, his strength is no joke. It might be comparable to Tsunade's. We see him being able to pick Gamabunta up and just hurl him. And he kind of does it with little difficulty. So his strength might play a part in, or at least, the 5 Kage summon and EMS fights.
Overall, I think I would give this to Sasuke, but now here's the problem. How is he going to be able to beat Minato if he's Edo? I mean, if he can't seal Minato, then that's definitely a big problem. Well, Sasuke isn't really a specialist when sealing ninjutsu, unlike Minato. But if at any point Minato decides to use a sealing ninjutsu, then Sasuke could copy it and try to apply it on Minato. The only trouble is, I'm not really too sure what Minato would use a sealing jutsu in this fight for. Maybe it might help with fighting against the Susanoo or something. But other than that, I don't really see Minato relying on sealing too much here. Plus, even if that is the case, it's pretty tough to land and effectively use a sealing jutsu on someone as fast and slippery as Minato. Now, like I said earlier, if Sasuke is able to pinpoint and accurately get rid of all of the kunai markers that Minato has on the field, then teleporting will be kind of rendered useless unless Minato has a seal somewhere else on the battlefield, because he will only have his base speed to rely on, and while that's still a problem, he can only rely on that for so long. So I don't really know. I think overall in combat stats, I feel like I would give this match to Sasuke, because I do think he'd be able to win here, but then the problem is being able to seal Minato is like gonna be there. I don't really, this is what I was talking about earlier, is like I don't know who I want to give this to, but I think at the end of the day, I mean, Minato will probably outlast Sasuke unless he is able to seal him. So yeah, I'll probably give this to Minato, extremely high dip. This isn't the bonus round, but for those of you who want me to cover Rinnegan Sasuke versus KCM Minato, then here it is. Yeah, Rinnegan Sasuke stomps. It's not really much of, I mean, Minato will give him some trouble, like for sure, but it won't be too much. Like I said earlier, if Sasuke is able to effectively get all the FTG markers off the field with Amaterasu or like flame control or something like that, and limit, the FTG spam, Sasuke's gonna have an easier time just trying to teleport to Minato or whatever and suck his soul out with the human path, and it's gonna be over.
Now we move on to the bonus round that I mentioned earlier. This one is going to be Minato from the Minato one-shot manga, so Teenage Minato, versus Valley of the End Part 1 Sasuke with 3 Tomo and Curse Mark 2. So with this one, I'm not really sure how proficient Minato is with FTG. And I say that because it's shown in the manga, he has to use a couple of hand signs in order to use FTG. But the fact that he can use it at all already puts him a little bit above Sasuke here. Not to mention, this same Sasuke, before CM2 with 3 Tomo, was already struggling against a one-tail cloak Naruto version 1, and Minato was out here doing a pretty decent job, to say the least, against a version 2 Jonin Kushina. I mean, I'm pretty sure she's Jonin, if not Chunin, but still, version 2 cloak Kushina. And he was able to fight the entire Nine Tails in her mind. And granted, she did help with the chains, but Minato also fought the entire Nine Tails, which is better than what Naruto did in the war arc with Sage Mode. On top of that, Minato also had a hole in his torso while all this was happening. So at the very least, he has more endurance than the one-tailed Naruto that Sasuke fought at the Final Valley. Granted, Sasuke did hit him with an Onyx Chidori, so maybe that does more damage than a V2 cloak stab, I suppose. But in any case, it's still crazy impressive how well Minato did against the Nine Tails in Kushina's mind with a hole in his torso. So I think on that alone, Minato will probably have this round as well. So there y'all have it. There's the rest of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Let me know if I missed anything, especially with like the EMS versus Edo Minato. I think that one's going to be a big source of contention. But let me know in the comments what I missed, if I missed anything. Let me know in the comments if you did enjoy the video, if you did enjoy the video. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like the video if you haven't already and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Click the bell for more notifications for future videos. I got way more ideas for future every point in the series, but if you guys have any ideas, be sure to shoot them down in the comments below because I would really like to know. But until then, LightningSnow, out.